Aristotle in the Renaissance. Centrality but not unrestricted adherence. Renaissance philosophy had Aristotle as central and influential figure, serving as the basis for many debates and developments. However, there was no blind or unrestricted adherence to his thought. The humanists, although they recognized the value of his works, also criticized him and sought other sources of inspiration, such as Plato. The initial ambiguity of the humanists and the valorization of rhetoric. The early humanists presented an ambivalent attitude towards Aristotle. They criticized the excessively literal interpretation and the lack of rhetorical appeal in his works, valuing the eloquence and persuasiveness of language. The central idea is that Renaissance philosophy can be seen as a series of footnotes to Aristotle. This means that Greek philosophical thought was a fundamental basis for the philosophical discussions and developments of the time. The rediscovery of Aristotle's work in the 12th and 13th centuries, together with availability of a vast corpus of his writings, and those of other authors associated with him, provided a wealth of material for study and debate. For example, the Greek edition of Aldus in 1495 of 1498 was an important milestone, bringing together a large number of works by Aristotle and other authors. In addition, it is worth noting the existence of Latin and vernacular translations, which made these texts accessible to a wider audience. The translation of commentaries on Aristotle from the debate and interpretation of ideas. Names such as Averroes, Albertus Magnus, and Thomas Aquinas are cited as examples of prolific commentators. The pervasiveness of Aristotle's influence. Aristotle did not restrict himself to philosophy, but extended his knowledge to other areas of knowledge, such as medicine, law, theology, and literary theory. This demonstrates the importance and centrality of Aristotelian thought in the intellectual scene of the time. Until the 17th century, Aristotle remained an indispensable reference, although he did not represent the definitive answer to all questions.
The ambivalence of the early humanists. The attitude of the early Italian humanists toward Aristotle. On the one hand, figures such as Petrarch criticized blind adherence to Aristotle and questioned the relevance of some of his research. Petrarch also criticized Aristotle's approach to virtue, considering it lacking in emotional apt and rhetorical force. This criticism reveals the humanist's emphasis on eloquence and ability of language to move the emotions and inspire virtue. On the other hand, the humanists did not reject Aristotle completely. They recognized the value of his works, especially in the field of natural philosophy. The valorization of eloquence and the influence of Plato. Petrarch's criticism of Aristotle reveals the valorization of eloquence and rhetoric by the humanists. They believed that persuasive language was essential for the promotion of virtue. In addition, some humanists such as Petrarch were influenced by Plato, although few at the time could read his texts in the original Greek. This demonstrates the coexistence of different philosophical currents in the Renaissance and the search for new sources of inspiration. Leonardo Bruni, the humanist chancellor of Florence, retranslated Aristotle's works on moral philosophy into Cicero's Latin. This initiative demonstrates the humanist effort to make Aristotle's text more accessible and to improve the quality of existing translations. Bruni valued the elegance, delight, and a certain unfathomable beauty present in the Greek originals. Other scholars also dedicated themselves to the study and retranslation of Aristotle's logic and works on natural philosophy. The teaching of Aristotle in universities during the Renaissance in the 1490s. Angelo Polizzano, a renowned humanist, taught a whole range of Aristotle's works at the University of Florence. His justification was that, as a grammaticus, that is, a philologist, he was competent in all fields of study. This demonstrates the growing impotance of Aristotle in the university curriculum and the appreciation of the philological study of ancient texts.
Various contexts of discussion. On the dissemination of Aristotle's works in the Renaissance. Discussions about Aristotle were not restricted to universities and religious schools. Other spaces, such as Leonard Circle and academies, such as the Accademia degli Infiammati in Padua and the Accademia Fiorentina, and even in princely courts, also played an important role in the dissemination and debate of Aristotelian ideas. The courts, in particular, promoted readings and decisions, as in the case of the court of King Henry III of France. Aristotle exerted a certain influence on popular works, with the books about the family of Leon Battista Alberti. This work, based on conversation, possibly fictional, about Aristotelian philosophy and morality, demonstrate how the Greek philosophers' ideas were adapted and incorporated into different textual genres and social contexts. The specific reference to Aristotle's Economicon, household administration, and Xenophon's Economicus illustrates the combination of different sources and the adaptation of Aristotelian thought to practical, everyday issues. Elements of Aristotelian thought have also been found in Shakespeare's plays. Aspects such as ethics and poetics, present in Aristotle's work, were recognized by the public of the time in theatrical plays. This reinforces the idea that Aristotelian ideas permeated Renaissance culture more broadly, even influencing artistic and popular expressions. The effort of translations and vernacular accessibility, that is, vernacular is an adjective that means particular or characteristic of regions, was a crucial point, highlighting in the context the intense effort to make Aristotle's works accessible in vernacular languages. Previous centuries had already witnessed translation and adaptations into languages such as French and Italian, but the Renaissance saw flourishing of this phenomenon. In addition to new Latin translations, translations into several European languages were produced. Although vernacular translations expanded access to Aristotle's works, the reading public was still restricted to literate people with some training in philosophy. Aristotle's ideas circulated during the Renaissance, the importance of vernacular translations for the dissemination of his works, and the complex relationship between the dissemination and democratization of knowledge. The presence of Aristotle in popular works, figures such as Benedetto Vracci, who was a craftsman, and Camilla Ercolani, a woman, not only read Aristotle's works but also wrote about them, which demonstrates a certain expansion of access to intellectual debate.
If you made it this far, thank you. Follow the channel for the second part of this video.